The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command of the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses, 40,000 dead Americans.
We were young and soldiers called to dedicate our lives in the name of God and country. Do what's just, boys. Go do what's right. A hot band of brothers waiting on our chance to add one more page unto the victory dance. Here am I, Lord, send me, send me. Victory lies in the spirit of the lives of the men who died for me.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
This is Michael Broderick, Marine Corps veteran, actor, and Gallant Few board member. You are listening to the New American Veteran. Now here's Karl Monger.
The VA says, on average, 20 veterans a day take their own lives. 10 years ago, they said it was 18. A year ago, they said it was 22. Last October, they released a study that said it's 20. Since 9/11, that's 100,000 people. If you dig into those details, though, there's a disturbing fact, and that is 65% of those 20 veteran suicides a day are veterans over the age of 50. It takes decades for failed transition to catch up with a veteran, to run through jobs, to burn through money, to become an alcoholic, to ruin relationships, to go through a divorce, to become isolated. The end of that path is very dark. And for many of them, it ends in death. And that's not acceptable. We can head it off, and we can head it off early if we help them transition right. I just published a book, Common Sense Transition. This tells my own personal story of transition. It tells the story of some of the veterans that I work with, and it offers solutions for how we as a veteran community and how the greater civilian community at large can help veterans transition. A better transition means stronger communities. It means more veterans paying taxes. It means more kids growing up in both parent families. It means less alcoholism, fewer DUIs. I'm convinced that we can do better, and you can help. Please grab a copy of Common Sense Transition. It's available now on Amazon.com, and share it with a friend. Welcome to Gallant Fuse, the New American Veteran. It is my privilege today to bring on paralyzed veteran and Paralympian Joel Hunt. Tell me a little bit about your background. Who are you, and what are you up to?
Perfect. All right, so did 10 years in the military. I was deployed 3 times. When I came home, long story short, found myself combined into a wheelchair. It wasn't because of my legs, but it was because of my traumatic brain injury. With my traumatic brain injury, I had dizzy spells, I had blackouts, and it just wasn't safe for me to walk. And my parents came home, and I tell, and everybody laughs at me, but it's the truth. My parents moved in with me when I came back, and my mom conned me into going to women's water aerobics. And I learned the hard way that water aerobics is not a place to pick up on chicks. And she sat there and she would, her and my father would constantly try and get me out of the house. And, with my TBI, with my PTSD, I did not want to get out of the house. I I kind of wanted to do my thing. I didn't want to be around other people. And one day, BOEC, Breckenridge Outdoor Reach Camp, the TBI camp, they called me. They're like, hey, would you like to go skiing? No, I'm good. Skiing is for people that have money, and I do not currently have money, so no, I'm good. And they're like, no.
And I have a traumatic brain injury that sometimes I fall over. But you got to throw that in there too, right?
Right. Oh, hey, I'm not perfect. I fell over a couple of times when I first started. Let me tell you, I always used to look at as these little kids are skiing, backwards, and then, skiing front, and I couldn't even stay up on my two legs. I'm like, shut up. I was so aggravated. It was pitiful. That I think besides learning how to walk again, learning how to ski was my second most hardest thing that I had to do during my rehabilitation. But I went to this camp and I didn't want to go. My parents basically forced me to go. So I went. And after I went, I finally found, I tell everybody, if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you'll know what I mean by Sheldon's spot. I finally found my spot. I finally found this area where I didn't have to rely on somebody, to hold me while I'm walking. I didn't have to rely on somebody to roll me when I was in my wheelchair. I finally found something that I could do, and hard time regulating my temperature. I found something that I could finally do on my own.
Now, hang on just a minute. Let me make sure that I get this straight, because you need help walking. You need somebody to push you in the wheelchair, but then you can ski.
Yes. So that's what was really weird. Like, they tried a bunch of different adaptive things, and this wasn't working. And I think the main reason why it was hard for me to walk, and you might know this as a what do they call it? As a heat stroke. When you have a heat stroke, you black out, you have dizzy spells, and you fall over, right? Well, I think that's what was going on. My TBI, I wasn't regulating my temperature. So since I was in the hot weather or warm weather, that's the reason why I was having the troubles that I was having. But now I found this sport, this recreational thing that it's cold. I had no trouble in the cold. I didn't wear a ski mask. I didn't hardly wear gloves. I could wear a thin jacket. And it was like 30, 20 degrees, then -3. And I was the only one that had no problem whatsoever. In fact, while I was skiing in the Paralympics, I was the only one that people would come up to and put their hand on my body, because I would just be wearing a ski suit. I wouldn't be wearing a jacket. So I finally.
So the cold.
Yeah.
Your brain injury made you better able to function in cold weather.
Right.
Which overcame the issues that prevented you from walking, your balance. That's amazing.
Right. At 90, my parents took a picture at 98 degrees. I was outside and I was not sweating. I did not have the ability to sweat.
That puts you in an extremely dangerous position when you go any place where it's warm, right?
And that's the reason why I couldn't walk. That's the reason why they were rolling me around with the wheelchair, and to be able to practice walking, you have to be able to walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
when I was skiing, I was finally in something that I could, practice standing up. I could finally practice, I don't want to say walking, but I was getting exercise. I was doing something. So from going on 15 different kind of medications, when I started skiing on the second year, I was on 3. But the one thing that I loved about the skiing was I felt free as a bird. I felt nobody could touch me. I felt I was on my own, and I didn't have to rely on somebody else to help. I think sometimes as veterans, to ask for help, we literally have to swallow our pride a little bit, because we have been taught in the military to do the initiative on your own. Don't ask for, yeah, sure, help your battle buddy. But I don't know how many times I was on a ruck march and I felt embarrassed when a battle buddy is like, come on, take my hand, let's go, That, to me, I don't know about you, but I'm sure you had the same feeling. That was an embarrassment. That meant I couldn't hack it.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to think about it in a little bit different fashion, because if you are faced with an enemy that's kicking your butt, you don't just continue letting the enemy kick your butt. You call for reinforcements, right? You call for mortar fire, you call for whatever you need to do so that you can win in that scenario. And we have to change our way of thinking a little bit, that post-traumatic stress, alcohol, traumatic brain injury, things like that. Now, those are the enemy that veterans face. And if you're not winning that, you must call for reinforcements, because to not call for reinforcements at that point is to fight a losing battle. You're not going to be able to get through that by yourself.
No, I totally agree. And, like I said, I think the best thing that I learned when I was rehabilitating is my traumatic brain injury taught me a lot. It taught me how to swallow up my pride. It taught me how to ask people for help. It taught me to appreciate others. I can tell you that I'm probably just like any American, where if you're not affected in it by someone, cancer. I didn't support cancer. I didn't really care about it because I wasn't affected until my mom died. I don't care about midget wrestling. You probably don't care about midget wrestling.
It's not on my top list of priorities.
Right. But if I had a brother or a cousin or a family or a friend that was a midget and he was a wrestler, well, suddenly I would start supporting midget wrestling because it affected me. And I think that's how today's society is. If you're not affected by it in some way or some form, then you're not going to support it.
I think that there are people out there that are willing to support it, but they don't know how. And the community, it makes it very easy and popular to say, hey, I support the military, or hey, I'm against PTSD. But then to say, okay, now what do I do about it? Unless they're connected with someone that, like you said, gives them that personal connection, then they really don't know how to get started. And that's where we as veterans, and using forums like this and the H-Train, we can get the word out that says, hey, here's something that you can do to help.
I agree. I really do agree. And, I tell you, the whole story behind the H-Train show, which, we can go further down if you would like to.
Yeah. First, before we do that, I want to go back to the skiing part, because you have a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
So
I'm all couple of times, you're going to have to keep me in line, Carl. I'm all
does anybody, can somebody smack you on the back of the head just if I say getting now? They do.
My wife went to work. Somebody has to work in this space.
You're gonna have to do it yourself then. I've skied a couple of times. I'm by no means, well, it's been more than probably 15 years since the last time that I skied. I loved it, but I also, I've taken a couple of pretty nasty falls skiing, and I don't go try the triple black diamond routes or anything like that. So what kind of risks do you have? How do you prevent yourself when you're skiing from smacking your head or doing something that's going to exacerbate your injury?
I wear a POC helmet. I encourage people before you go out to like Dick's Sporting Goods, or if there's even a Sports Authority. I don't even think they're around anymore. Any place, even Amazon, before you do that, go get a POC helmet. A POC helmet is going to run you at least $700. But with a POC helmet, I've took some heavy falls. I've lost consciousness before. In fact, I know when I was doing a Super G for training, I took a heavy fall and I didn't know where I was. And finally, in the office with everybody looking at me, and I'm like, what's everybody looking at me? What happened? And they're explaining to me, and I'm trying to ski in this race come next week. And, they're asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't even remember skiing down with you guys.
What is a Super G?
Super G is where you wear skis that are 215. I don't know if it would be inches or centimeters, but they're big, big, long skis. And the gates are probably about 2 or 3 times bigger than GS. And if you don't know what GS gates are, in skiing, if you've ever watched the Olympics,
sure,
slalom is 1 pole. GS is a flag with, the flag with 2 poles. And then Super G is the same thing, except the flags are way further apart. I mean, at least 2 or 3 times more further apart. And you're going a lot faster. In fact, I think they clocked us out one time when we were in Kimberly City, 190 kilometers an hour. That kind of tells you how fast Super G is. You'll probably be lucky if you're going 40 or 50 miles per hour or 30 on a GS course, and you're not really going very fast on slalom because it's very technical. But yeah, Super G. And I told my friend, I'm like, well, I don't even remember skiing down. Did they take ski patrol? And he's like, if you're trying to ski next week, you probably shouldn't say that out loud, and I'm like, oh, okay. I got a traumatic brain injury. I've got no filter. I asked my wife. I don't know how many times she's gotten upset with me when we go out into like the marketplace, because I just don't think. We were looking for furniture the other day, and I don't know if they really want to be helpful or if they're looking for commission, but I had this guy come over and he's like, can I help you? And I'm like, no, we're just browsing. And if we want your help, we'll come find you. Okay. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, I said that kind of rude, didn't I? She's like, just a little, but you're the TBI guy. And I'm like, yeah.
So that's a key thing to talk about there, though, because one of the things that there's a common theme in the work that I do with veterans, and that is that perception is not always reality. And we have to remember that in interactions with other people, sometimes it's a text message, sometimes an email, or sometimes a post on social media where it comes across in your brain one way, but the other person didn't mean it that way. And you can create problems with relationships by misunderstanding or by putting your interpretation on what somebody else said. So that's a good point right there, just to jump in and, you sounded pretty harsh when you talked to that salesperson, but it's a consequence of your traumatic brain injury, not because you intended to be rude.
Exactly. And you have a good point, because I think, especially today, with everybody's, not everybody has the same knowledge of grammar. A lot of people abbreviate, social media and stuff like that. It's crazy how much a period in the wrong place of a sentence can change that sentence from being nice to, oh, this guy's a prick.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the H trainings. I interrupted you and took you off as you were starting in that path.
No problem. Well, I tell you, so just to kind of conclude the story with the scan, within 4 years, I'm the first traumatic brain injury in winter sports on standing to make it to the Paralympics. And I did the Paralympics in Sochi. I represented my country for a second time. And the best part about that was representing my country, because I couldn't represent my country in the military anymore. And when I got that uniform and I got that flag on my uniform, and because used to there was no flag, and they changed it to where there's a flag all the time. You only wore a flag during like deployments, and they changed it. I was very inspired when I first started. I was inspired when I had my dog tags. That tells you what kind of person I was with the military. But so I got to represent my country in Sochi. And when I got done with it, I thought to myself, I want to start a podcast, because just look at me. I've got this public figure check mark, and now I have a platform that I can make a difference. So I started this podcast a long time ago. It was called Beer 30, and we didn't know what we were talking about, Carl. We just sat there and we were conversating and talking about dumb things, and wasn't really doing anything. And then I had this distant cousin who had called me. If you remember the possible government shutdown when Obama took office, because the Democrats and Republicans, go figure, couldn't work together.
Right.
Well, I had a distant cousin that called me up, and she was asking me questions. And I'm like, no, there's not just two nonprofits. I never named the nonprofits that I think are bad, because if they're doing something good for veterans, I don't want to endorse them, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, you like the nonprofit. All nonprofits are somewhat good because they're doing something for veterans. But some nonprofits are bad for the simple reason you're paying for the CEO's lakeside cabin on the lake rather than paying for the veterans. So that's who I endorse. That's who I have on my show. And when she told me that she only knew two nonprofits, I'm like, okay, this has got to change. So when I looked at podcasts, there's plenty of podcasts with veterans screaming at other veterans and talking about nonsense. There's plenty of podcasts talking about government or rights or stuff like that, but there's not a whole lot of podcasts interviewing nonprofits that bring in less than $80,000 a year in admin cost. I mean, we had you on, with your nonprofit, because you're doing the right thing. And there's just not a lot of nonprofits like that. Well, this stuff went like wildfire, because we've got people that are tuning in because they're learning about nonprofits that are helping veterans and society, the community. They want to give to those nonprofits, especially if they're making less than $80,000 a year, starting out. Well, then veterans tune in because they're like, man, I'm having issues with my PTSD, and I've done it, Karl. I've called the suicide prevention hotline before just to record and see how long it took. They put me on hold for a minute.
I was going to joke around with you there and say, just a minute, let me put you on hold. And then,
yeah. Well, Karl, if you're calling the suicide hotline and you're a veteran and you are really in that shape or form, he's not going to wait. He's not going to wait. I'm telling you, he's not.
No, but it's the opposite, because that's confirmation that that veteran's not important and doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And so that could actually push them over the edge.
Right. And I don't know how many times I've like called and told them, hey, I need it's an emergency with my meds, and then I'm sitting in the doctor's office at the emergency room ER waiting for like 15, 20 minutes. It's like, come on. Now, I get it. The VA is great in certain places. If you have smaller towns, the VA is better than if you have, like here in Denver, they're so overwhelmed. You can tell they're overwhelmed. So the VA in part isn't bad. Like my old sergeant used to say, the VA is just an engine, and it's the leadership that makes it roll like oil. Still doing great stuff. They're still, doing things, but they're so overwhelmed. There's a lot of locations that do not know what they're doing. And those people are just put in that slot because they're undermanned. So I have created a not nonprofit, but I created a radio show that runs every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Military Brotherhood Radio. That's M as Mike, B as Bravo, radio.us. And, not only are we connecting Afghanistan and Iraq deployed soldiers with today's music, because when you go over there, you kind of lose connection with the music. I mean, I do a DJ show for fun, and Karl, there's new songs every single week.
Some of the new songs, though, maybe this is because I'm over 50 years old. Some of the new songs I could do without those. So you have to roll it back a little bit, play some of the oldies.
Well, right, and there's some soldiers over in Iraq and Afghanistan that have a little bit of soul. So they do like the new songs, especially rapping. I don't like rapping, but there's a lot of soldiers that like, the rapping. So we connect soldiers with today's music, and we talk about the benefits and stuff. And that's the tagline for my show, showing veterans that there are more programs out there beyond the VA. And we have a hashtag of 22 too many. And that's the only way that you're going to stop these suicides. It's not gun control. It's not mental meds. What it is, the only way you're going to stop veteran suicides is if you stop making veterans jump through hoops to get the treatment or to utilize the programs that are out there. Because there's lots, this as well as I do, there's lots of programs out there.
There are tons of programs. Yeah. And they vary from community to community, which is so important to have a robust veteran network that's out there that knows what exists in their community, so that when a veteran local needs some help, you've got people that know where to send him or her, or where to take him or her, or what's available to help them out. I think that you hit on it at the beginning of the conversation, and I don't remember if this is pre where the show started or after, so I'll throw it back in here now. Okay. But when you are in the military and you're taught suck it up, drive on, don't bring your crap to me, go figure it out on your own.
I do the initiative.
Yeah, then when you're trying to deal with your traumatic brain injury or your post-traumatic stress symptoms or the fact that you've got to drink to go to sleep or anger or any number of other things that you have going on, you're trying to deal with it yourself. And the worse it gets, the more you feel like there's something wrong with yourself, which forces you into an isolation pocket. And the more you go into that isolation, the more separated you are from the community, whether it's your family, friends, or the veteran community, the worse that it gets, the more acute that isolation becomes. And when you carry that isolation out to its conclusion, you have somebody who believes that the world is better off without them because nobody cares about them, they don't have any purpose, and they don't have any hope.
Right. And before I let you go, I want to tell veterans that are listening that, you know, maybe there's not something wrong with you. You know, if you like getting out of the house a lot and then all of a sudden you find yourself not getting out as much, confined, and that you're having issues and stuff, veterans, I'm just letting you know that sometimes it's not you. Sometimes society or wherever you live, you know, they're having issues too. And if you have a chicken that has the flu and you put him in a box with another chicken that has a flu, they're all going to have the flu. And you'll sit there and you'll look at yourself and what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like you said, and you just keep on looking at yourself and you put yourself in that bigger hole and you're like, okay, I need help. I feel alone. You know, the biggest thing that I've struggled with the last year and a half is I feel that my friends have alienated me because either I've been depressed or in a bad mood or stuff like that. Well, veterans, I've got news for you. It's not really that. It's social media has made it easier for you not to correspond with somebody face to face.
Gives you the illusion of intimacy without the reality of it.
Right. You know, why should I travel 30 minutes to come see you when I can just either text you or Facebook message or even Twitter message? So veterans, it's not always you. You know, society society can be blamed in this too. Doesn't mean that you don't need help. Doesn't mean that, you know, you don't need a battle buddy, but it's not always you. So don't think that.
Well, not only that, but when they think that there's something wrong with me because, it's the way that I'm feeling or whatever it is, they need to understand that that's the normal part. Right. For them to feel like they're not normal is the normal part. And once they recognize that it's normal for them to feel that way, then it makes it okay for them to reach out and ask somebody for help. Go back to if you're in a losing fight and you're in danger of your life, you don't keep fighting until the enemy kills you. You call for reinforcements, whether it's, air power or mortars or the reserve squad or whatever it is, you call for reinforcements. And that's what we've got to do now. When you move into that isolation, when you feel there's something wrong with you, that's when you need to call for reinforcements, because it may just be that you need to have the contact with another veteran so you can talk about, without involving excessive alcohol, you can talk about what's going on. Or it might be a case where you need to go in and talk to a professional, whether it's a doctor or something else. And one other thing, and then I'll go back and let you talk because I'm interviewing you. There are so many veterans that I've talked to lately that some of the things that are going wrong within their bodies are blood chemistry related. A traumatic brain injury can change your hormones. Post-traumatic stress can change your hormones. One of my buddies here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area found out that, gosh, now it's completely slipped my mind, but it was a chemical in his blood that was off, and it was way off, and it was creating anxiety and depression in him that he couldn't explain, which made him think that there was that he was abnormal, that there was really something wrong with him. And what it really was they needed to do a correction. They needed to give him this particular hormone that corrected his blood, the chemistry within the blood. And then all of a sudden things cleared up and he started to see some clarity.
Yeah, I can see that, because I know one medicine that I was on it for so long, and I didn't take it for like 2 days, and I said something to my wife because the VA didn't get it out in time, and my wife's like, well, I don't see any difference between you on the medicine and off the medicine. And sometimes I think your body grows, it grows attached to that medicine, and that medicine just doesn't work for you anymore. So they put me on some new medicine, and I mean, you're friends with me on Facebook. There's a couple of times that, I'll just do a comedy hour, and I love this little Snapchat. I don't know if you've watched them or not. I'm just being silly, but why do we have to post political ads and all this stuff all the time? Why can't we be silly? So I post probably the most obnoxious videos that you could think. I'm surprised Facebook hasn't blocked me, but they're funny, They're me dancing in like girls' clothes and me dancing as a cheerleader. But I'm
starting to see a trend here. No, what you said is exactly right, though. How many people changed who they were going to vote for president because of what somebody else posted on Facebook, right? It doesn't happen. So stop doing political discussions on Facebook. Everybody knows how you feel already. Right. Facebook is a place to share with your friends. It's a place for kid pictures, for vacation pictures, for, let's I don't want to be all pie in the sky and that kind of thing, but
I totally agree with you. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great, Karl, if Facebook made it to where, okay, you want to share this article on something political, or you want to share this article of, we'll just go with political right now. You have to pay for it, because we both know if you want to put an ad out for your show, or you want new followers or something like that, you have to
spend a little bit of bucks.
Yeah, that would be the best thing Facebook could do. I've heard rumors that Facebook is making it harder to post and share fake news. I to do it, but it's rumored that they're getting ready to do it. But if they could make it to where you had to pay for political ads and then take that money and give it to a nonprofit, wow, that would be amazing. That would simply be amazing.
So tell me, we got a few more minutes and then we probably need to wrap this up. What, as you've done the H train, can you talk about a couple of your favorite shows or something that you really want somebody to make sure that they see or listen to if they haven't had a chance to?
My favorite shows is the H Train show, or a few of like talk radio podcasts that I've listened to that they've kind of mentored me in some way or some form.
Any in particular that jump out?
I would say the biggest one, and he gave me the advice, and that's how the H Train show was created. The Drive with D-Mac and Big Al. They are on 104.3 The Fan here in Denver, but it's The Fan, and I guarantee you that once you'll listen to one of their shows, you might even become a Bronco fan, but you'll keep listening because they are funny.
My wife's a Broncos fan. I can't quite go there. But,
Okay.
But they did smack the Cowboys yesterday.
Yes, they did. Well, it's very easy to smack a team when you're at home too. So we'll see how that plays in an away game. I'm never really nervous about home games. It's like a 50-50 chance.
You got the altitude advantage. Everybody else is sucking air trying to breathe.
Yep, that, and it's very loud. Have you ever been to Colorado, Karl? Okay.
I have. I've been to the stadium there in Colorado.
Okay. Yep. You've been to the stadium. You know how loud it gets. I'm surprised it's not up there with Kansas City and Seattle Stadium. It's so loud. But yeah, that one show, D-Mac and Big Al, The Drive, it's awesome. Another show that I kind of like, it gave me some ideas, was the Dan Patrick Show. I did listen to the Dan Patrick Show for about I would say probably about 7 or 8 months, and I got some ideas off of that. And then after that, it just kind of trickled to my own segments, So I have lots of friends that tell me that the best part of my show that they love is the tribute to troops. That's where we, at the very end, where we give a shout out to a veteran that had recently died, either KIA or just recently died. And the families, they really, it means a lot to them. It creates an internet archive, so they kind of feel that their son or daughter is remembered, and it just gives a nice little tribute.
Oh, that's awesome. How do people find the H Train? Where do they find it to watch it or listen to it?
You can go on MBR Radio. That's microradio.us. And you can go to my H Train Show podcast page. You'll see the shows, and you can listen. You can hear the recent news video that they did of me, my story, why we do. It tells a little bit about our investigators, because the nonprofits that we have on, we have 7 investigators that spend about a month on each nonprofit before we invite them on the show, because we want to make sure that they're good. And we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes, and I made this very easy because I'm when it comes to technical stuff, I'm somewhat dumb. So I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and all of them is at H Train Show. I try to make it too easy so that everybody would have an easy time finding it, because there's a lot of veterans out there that need help. And if somebody wants to recommend a show or a nonprofit to be on the show, do they go to your Facebook page? Is that the best place to say, hey? Yep. Yep. Just send us a message. It doesn't matter. We monitor it daily. So if they have a suggestion, if they have a tip, if they have a soldier that was KIA and they would like it to be part of the tribute to troop, they can send it our way, and we can also do that. None of this costs any listener. You'll never have to cost. And if you listen you might even get some swag, you know, if you say, hey, I just listened to your show. I just gave you a review. Can you send me a shirt? Can you send me a hat? You know, we'll send it. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, tips, or anything like that, they can always send that stuff, because, you know, we all do this as a volunteer. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. The H Train show I created because I can't take back what I couldn't fix in the past, so I can fix the future. And I think that's what veterans really need to focus on. We can't focus on what we did yesterday, but we can focus on the future, stay busy. You know, just like Sheldon, find your spot on the couch. And once you find that spot, once you find your groove, try to make a difference. The society, quit blaming everybody else for, you know, all the things that are bad today, and just focus on you and focus on you trying to change the world one step at a time.
Joel, what's the next big thing that where people can see? Do you have a race coming up or anything like that?
No, I have. There's not enough time. I have retired from ski racing, but the next big thing is October 3rd. You can check it out on our Facebook page. We have a remote in Jacksonville, Florida. The business is to be determined, and the nonprofit is to be determined. But just keep checking our Facebook page for updates. We'll let you know. And if you like swag, I love giving away free stuff, especially if I don't have to pay for it.
Awesome. Joel, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for being on the New American Veteran.
Thank you for having me, Carl. And I don't know if I've ever told you, but thank you for your service as well.
Well, likewise, thank you for your service and for your continuing service and the difference that you make every day for veterans. You save one life, and everything else is worth it.
Exactly.
That beautiful rendition of Taps is a public domain recording created and recorded by an employee of the United States government. It is open source and not under copyright protection. Kenny Thomas' song Send Me is used by permission of Kenny Thomas. Isaiah 6:8 was read by Tim Abel. Thank you, Michael Broderick, for the introduction. All work is original or used by permission. This has been a production of Gallant Fuse, the New American Veteran, a member of the Heroes Media Group. All rights reserved.